Welcome to Al Jazeera. The Supreme Court in Venezuela has ruled that delaying the inauguration of President Hugo Chavez is legal. The court also said that in the meantime, the current administration can continue in office. Well, the ceremony was initially scheduled to take place on Thursday, but Chavez is still in hospital in Cuba following his fourth cancer operation. The opposition had argued that the government's decision to postpone the ceremony was unconstitutional.
Although a new constitutional period begins on the 10th of January, it is not necessary for President Hugo Chavez to be sworn in again, because he remains in post without interruption. The swearing in of the re-elected president can take place at a later date before the Supreme Court, if it cannot happen on the 10th of January before the National Assembly. This is in line with 231 of the Constitution.
Al Jazeera's Teresa Bow joins us live now from the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. Teresa, why was this Supreme Court ruling so important?
Well, Darren, I mean, this ruling came as no surprise here. As for the last 10 years, the Supreme Court has basically sided with the government. And what was being debated here was the legality. The whole situation that is going on here. The Supreme Court was supposed to pronounce itself about two articles in the Constitution that basically say what needs to happen in this country. President Hugo Chavez is not here for his inauguration day that was supposed to happen on January 10th. So what they basically said is that President Chavez asked for permission to the National Assembly in order to go to Cuba to have this latest surgery. They also said that until now there is no temporary or absolute absence from the president, and they also said that until now there is no need for a medical commission to verify the president's health.
All right, Teresa, thank you for that. Well, President Chavez's future is a concern across Latin America. The Venezuelan government has invited regional leaders to the rally planned for Thursday, but the opposition is asking them not to come. Well, Uruguayan President José Mujica has already confirmed he'll be there representing the regional bloc Mercosur. Bolivia's Evo Morales is also going, and Ecuador should be represented by its foreign minister, Ricardo Patino. Argentina's President, Cristina Fernandez, is expected to be visiting Cuba. She hasn't said if she'll stop in Caracas as yet, and it's not clear if the regional power Brazil will be directly represented. But the foreign affairs advisor to President Dilma Rousseff was in Havana this week. He said he sees no reason why Chavez's swearing in should not be postponed. Well, let's go to Philadelphia. We can talk to George Chicariello Mar. He's a specialist on Venezuela at Drexel University. George Chicariello Mar, why is it so important for these regional delegations to go to Venezuela for this rally, even though there'll be no actual inauguration ceremony?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think the reality is that this is a political process which benefits from and thrives on international regional support. And so I think in that sense, the fact that international leaders are arriving in Caracas has the same meaning as the fact that many thousands of Chavistas will mobilize around the outskirts of the government to show their support for this government. Now, this is a government that has built regional integration. Long ago, nations realized that they couldn't go about the task of sheltering themselves from international finance, for example, or to build socialism in a single country. And in reality, they need to build these institutions of regional integration. And so Venezuela under Chavez has rebuilt OPEC. It has built things like Mercosur, the international, the South American regional alliance. It's built things like the Bolivarian Alliance for the Americas. And these are regional institutions that seek to challenge the hegemony of the United States and to build what Chavez and the Venezuelan government refer to as a multipolar world.
So does this support that you're talking about then, that Chavez has both at home and in the region, suggest he's untouchable in some way?
Certainly not untouchable, and if we know anything about the Venezuelan opposition, it's that they say things about a sitting president that very few people in the United States, for example, would tolerate. And so certainly it doesn't mean that, but what it does mean is that Chavez has the support of a significant sector of the Venezuelan population, and he has the support of a significant sector of the leadership of Latin America, and what's been called the pink tide, this coming to power of leftist and even socialist governments, especially those of Ecuador and Bolivia, but also governments that are more moderate, such as the former government in Chile, the government of Brazil, and the government of Argentina.
Let me just get a final thought from you, George. I mean, where does the opposition go from here then? I mean, can they capitalize on Chavez's absence from the country and perhaps leverage themselves politically, do you think?
That wouldn't have been impossible, but this is an opposition that consistently makes strategic and tactical errors. I think the idea that the opposition thinks that it can request that international heads of state not attend and not come to Caracas is just a silly idea, frankly, and it shows that they don't know essentially their place as an opposition. They're an opposition. That means that they weren't elected. They weren't elected regionally. They weren't elected on the national level. And even if they have new elections, which is what they're itching for, even if there are new elections, if they were held in the next 30 days, the Venezuelan opposition would certainly lose.
All right, George Chicariello-Mar, thank you very much for talking to Al Jazeera.